Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I want to get to the Daughtry thing. I forget what the guy's first name is, but and I also want to talk a little bit about the Kyle Rittenhouse, whatever that thing is. I'm going to cover Saturday Night Live on my other channel today, the cold open, the fake Sesame Street thing. So you can check that out probably later today. I think I'm going to put this video up first. But anyways, here's Nancy. Let's start here. My wife sent me this, I think, last night. And she had this exchange on 60 Minutes. Kind of a ghoul off here.
Here's what you've said. You've said, if someone's ripping your face off, you rip their face off.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And that's what it was.
Yeah, she do that. I do that. I do that. I like to rip the face off. Is that what happened? So somebody ripped your face off, and you ripped their face off, and this is the outcome. I'll do that. I'll do that.
Here's what you've said. You've said, if someone's ripping your face off, you rip their face off.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And that's what it was like. Now, you know, you have this...
Yeah, I probably said that, you know. They just have to know. You throw a punch, you better take a punch.
From a grandmother.
I do that. I do that.
A punch.
From a grandmother.
Yeah.
From a grandmother. Yeah. Her presentation, her weird, goofy laugh, her, you know, all of this that's going on is what nightmares are made of, right? Like she's like some sort of James and the Giant Peach villain, or, you know, Charles, those English story villains, right? I do that. And so,
yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that.
And it's just accepted. This is our leadership. We have Jojo Magoo, who is clueless and lost, and I mean, he's barely functioning. And Nancy's older than him, and she's all ghouled up. I mean, this is what we've accepted as leadership. These are two of the three most powerful people in the country. Of course, they've hid Kamala away. Like, Kamala's a ghost. He's polling at such low numbers. I don't know what they're doing there. And so they're, like, this is America right now, and I love it. It's funny. This is the apocalypse in its full swing. And when people just accept things as normal that shouldn't be normal, then this is what it is, right? This is not your leader. These people aren't good leaders. You wouldn't follow these people. If you were shipwrecked on an island, you wouldn't nominate Nancy and Jojo Magoo your leaders, right? Just because they are political people. They would be, you know, just hide in the corner and keep your mouth shut, because because when it comes to eating people, you don't really have anything to offer anybody, you know. So, well, anyways, that's Nancy. So this guy, Chris Daughtry, and I think I watched him on American Idol because I have some memory of that. I know I watched some episodes of American Idol, and I know who Chris Daughtry is, so I'm trying to, at least I kind of know who he is. But his daughter was killed, his stepdaughter was killed. And I think that was part of his story, right? Maybe he was married a single mom. Was that part of his original American Idol story? And he was, you know, raising a daughter that, stepdaughter or something. But anyways, not important. Like, I don't need a whole history here. But there is apparently a homicide involving his daughter. And so that brings us back to the Illuminati sacrifices and solstice sacrifices. And this isn't the original list that I had. I have another one saved somewhere on my computer. But they have these long lists of people who have lost somebody close to them, often a mom, often a child or something. And they, you know, I mean, it's the tragedy of these deaths, untimely deaths, where famous people lose a relative or somebody close to them. And oftentimes they lose somebody right before they pop. And I used to think it was intentional, like it was some sort of, you know, and this is a partial list. You can think about this, like all these celebrities have some sort of tragedy in their life. And so I used to think it was, like an actual planned human, this is what's going to happen kind of thing. But as I thought about it, I think it's more of an energetic, etheric, demonic type of situation. And to become famous, there is something that happens like this. And it jettisons a person into some sort of famous situation, some, fame and fortune situation. They get like jump started with that, whatever it is, the energy for that thing. But it's a part of celebrity life. Almost all these celebrities have something like this in their past. And, sometimes it's talked about, sometimes it isn't. But it's just there. I mean, think about all the addicts, all the celebrities that die young. I mean, it's, there's a lot of tragedy associated with fame and fortune. There's always some sort of tragedy. And, I think it's more of that you have to pay in some way. There's a price for fame. There's a literal saying that says there's a price for fame. And this appears to be one of the prices. And so, and I think that becomes something where as time goes on and fame sucks and being a celebrity sucks, and you realize, oh, this was, not what I wanted. Because it's something a soul goes through, right? It's something that every soul has to experience some fame, some success, being somebody famous, being a king, being a queen. Because you come in as like a first timer, as a soul that's just learning to be a human being. And your big impression is you see rich people, or you see people who you think have it all. And you're like, oh, wow, I want to be one of them. And so you die with this sort of envy, with this, oh, if I was rich and famous, my life would have been great. If I was a king or a queen or whatever it is. And so your soul says, all right, you're going to have to do this, right? We'll have to do this one time just so you learn. So you incarnate in as a famous person. You realize you're more miserable than when you were a peasant. And then you can get this sense. I mean, maybe it takes multiple existences for some people because they just don't get it, right? But then after you become famous, you always kind of have a sense that you were, catapulted into this position by the loss of somebody that you love. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to die. It could be, relationships. You had to throw people under the bus, and, people you left behind that you were, really loved you for who you were. And so you had to jettison them for superficial people that only like you for your fame and, your wealth and all these things. And so you have a bunch of people that don't really know you or care about you. They're just parasites. And the people that really loved you, you really miss them because you realize how miserable you are as a famous person. And you really want people around you that are, loving and understanding and, mutually beneficial relationships. But then everything's about people sucking energy off each other. The whole ghoul syndrome, right? That's why they get all ghouled out and they die miserable. Like all these celebrities die alone and miserable and, because they missed the boat. That's not why you're here. Your purpose here isn't to have some good life, some idealistic life, some utopian life. It's to evolve spiritually. And then you connect to God and you connect to the divine essence, love, what I talk about in the heartfulness system. When you connect to the source and, you're filled with love, your love bank is filled, then the things that you go through in life are easier to go through, right? They're not as important. You can internalize your existence and go inside as, the storms are raging outside, but you're peaceful inside yourself. But, celebrities, it's all materialistic and all being, externalize their existence. And it doesn't work. It's not your true purpose to be here. And that's why they get all ghouled out. And speaking of ghouls, one of my viewers sent me this from Tucker Carlson.
From the government so far. No one who's been paying attention is surprised by any of this. Ghouls like Joe Biden politicized this case day one.
So one of my viewers sent me this because, I sort of exhumed the word ghoul. And, I make jokes about people stealing my bits, but I don't care. Like, whether they are or not, doesn't really matter. maybe they came up with ghoul on their own. It isn't like it's some hard thing, right? You look at somebody and you categorize them as a ghoul, and next thing you know, it takes off. But I want to get into the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, because that's what I mainly want to talk about. But first, if people are copying what I do here, if you're going to watch my videos and end up learning something or getting ideas, and, it stirs something up inside of you, some sort of, realizations inside of you, and things that I, present here, like anybody's not just me, but anybody, like the whole template for being a truther was something that I, adopted. There was a mentality and a dogma in the world of truthers. And when I first started making videos like this, I, went along with everybody else, like the group concepts. I had my own individual stuff, but I went along with the group concepts. There was like a set of shared beliefs, and, a lot of it had originated with Alex Jones. But I started to see a lot of the stuff was just fake. It was, doctored or manipulated or just disinformation. And it didn't make sense when I thought about it myself, right? When I, went through a logical progression. And I decided I wasn't going to watch other truthers anymore. And that I was just going to, connect to the source, use my connection to the Heartfulness system. Babaji, the second master of the Heartfulness system, stopped reading books and dropped out of school like when he was in 8th grade because he wanted to be an original thinker. And so he would connect to God and get the information directly from God as he, developed into a spiritual person later in life. And so that's, to me, the best way to approach knowledge, that get it internally, just hone your ability to connect to the Ethernet. So let me pause there, and this is going to go on long, what I'm about to say, and I think it's kind of important. So let me do the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, because that'll take a couple of minutes, and then I'll get back to what I was saying. It's it's an understanding of what's going on in the truth community, but also with mentors and gurus and things like this. Kind of an important understanding. So the thing with Kyle Rittenhouse is, when whatever incident happened, I had turned on the news like I always do for a few minutes. Like I watch it like a few minutes. I might be waiting for my wife to come down, or I might be eating lunch or breakfast, and I just get a little dose of the news. And almost every time I watch the news, I can make a mocking video of what I'm watching. Like it just depends on whether I want to do it or not. So I'll come in, and if it's CNN, I already have CNN up on my YouTube TV, because I have to, copy the news item from my watching it on regular television to my computer. And so I have YouTube TV, which is a good sort of app. And, I have it set on CNN, but also I record other shows. And so I'll come in and I'll grab it, and I'll make a video about it or not, depends on what happens. But that's how bad the news is. Like I can make fun of it pretty much every time I watch it. It's always so fake. So I was watching the news for a little bit. And, during the BLM riots, and this kid shows up, Kyle Rittenhouse, pre the, whatever event he was involved in. And they're interviewing him, and they're creating a backstory. Like whenever they have a TV show, if they introduce a character, like into an episode, before the big event, they introduce a backstory, right? What the person's about, why they are doing what they're about to do. And so you get a little bit of a sense of the person. They just don't come in and be a part of some big event in the TV show or movie if they don't create a little bit of, some personality and character development. They have to develop the character, especially if they're going to reoccur later on in the TV show or series that's going on. And so they introduce this kid. You can find it somewhere up on the internet. He's talking about what he's there for and why he's there. And then I hear later, that he's in an incident. I'm like, oh, I saw that kid. They introduced him as a character into the show. And so it looks fake as F, right? The crying and the other stuff looks pretty, fake as well. And so, I mean, that's what it seems like, you know, because they always do that. They introduce somebody who's going to be a reoccurring character, and he's going to come back around like he is now, and then they drag it out for like a week or so, and then there'll be, you know, some sort of an outcome which will probably look pretty fake as well as that, right? And so Tucker Carlson covering this, you know, he is going back to what I was saying before about the truth community, is that, you know, wherever you are in terms of your level, right, the level that you're at as a truther or as anything, right, as some sort of a person, you're going to find a teacher that's just slightly ahead of you. And, you know, there's two things here. There's the, you know, the person's just going to be slightly ahead of you, and you're also going to gravitate to certain aspects of their teachings. And so when people like take stuff from me or whatever, I don't want to say take like it's stealing, because, you know, it's just information. When people, you know, these ideas appeal to somebody, most of the time it's the lower ideas that I have to share. I don't know if there's anybody out there talking about God within, because that's the, you know, the best thing that I have to offer here. I mean, the heartfulness meditation, which is a system to help facilitate that connection. But the difference between people now and people, more evolved people in the future, is they'll all realize that God is within them, and they'll have a deep connection to God. Because religions suck. Religions block your internalized connection to God because they want to patent God. They want to use God as a, you know, that they have the only ability to connect you to God. And so that's very profitable, and it's a powerful thing to be in between somebody and their divine connection. And so religions are maybe the worst things, even though, you know, they're religions and they do some good things and whatever it is, because it's a big lie, right? That's the big lie. That's the biggest lie, that divinity is within you. And all the fame and fortune, all the great things you can experience on physical earth, you know, material earth, all the pleasures, all the ego-boosting things, all the desirable things, that connecting to God is so much better than that internally. Everything else pales in comparison. All the, you know, so-called wonderful things and sensory stimulation here, nothing compares to connecting to God inside of you. And very few people really, you know, take that away from me, like in terms of what's important about my YouTube channel and my message here. Very few people really think about connecting to God internally. Some people do. Some people try the heartfulness system. Some people, you know. But most people come for some other aspect, right? Maybe you like those things, but they're just, you know, they're not what you focus on. You know, the jokes, the ghoul stuff, I mean, what Tucker is doing here. Because Tucker is a part of the mainstream beast and part of the left-right paradigm, and he's demonizing liberals. I get a lot of people think that I'm about demonizing liberals because that's what they think the truth community is. And, you know, that's not at all what I'm here for. Like, it's these stupid ideologies are going to mean nothing when things start getting reals, like when shit hits the fan, right? Like big events, real big events are coming. These small events that seem big now, like, you know, the 2001 thing and, you know, they're you know, the COVID thing, they're only affecting people in a smaller way, right? The COVID is the biggest thing so far, but it's going to be nothing compared to the other things that are happening. Economic collapse, and then these different type of upheavals that are going to happen as this system implodes, right? And so, like, one of the things, if I was going to be credited for something, it's diving into the celebrity culture that's really kind of, I don't want to say beneath me, but beneath me, and getting into it so that I can, you know, connect with people and teach them about some of these higher principles. Like, that's, you know, the big, I don't know, sacrifice that I'm making here. I don't feel like it is now. I kind of enjoy it. I've come to enjoy it. But I never really cared about any of those things and don't really care about them now. But, you know, I have to meet people where they're at. And so there's two things here. There's this idea that you're going to have a teacher or mentor that appeals to you that's just slightly ahead of you. That's why people come in and they find like Alex Jones or some right-wing person because they're, you know, that's their orientation. and then they move up and they go beyond that person, hopefully, because some people never move. That's as far as they get in the truth community. And then people move up. And, to be a quality teacher, you always have to keep on evolving yourself and moving, forward. And people who are, learning from you are absorbing, where you were last year or whatever it might be. In the heartfulness system, the end, sort of emergence with God is called the central region. There's the heart region, the mind region, and the central region. And that's when you return to your source by going internally. And there's this ocean of bliss, I think it's called. Ocean of something, I think it's called Ocean of Bliss. And Babaji said that his spiritual master, Lalaji, is swimming ahead of him in this ocean of bliss and transmitting back his, knowledge and accomplishments as Babaji is, evolving himself, right? So there's always got to be a movement. Your teacher has to be evolving, you have to be evolving. And then, maybe at some point you go beyond that teacher and you find another one. And then you go to another one, right? And I could, I don't really know the personalities in the truth community, but I can tell by the links that people send me where they're at, right? I see the people who are still locked into the liberals are the devils kind of, stupidity or whatever. This group is to blame, that group is to blame. And I can see where they come to my channel and I'm like 4 or 5, teachers of, and I don't want to call myself a teacher, but, in terms of what I am to them, I'm 4 or 5 levels above where they are. And so they get confused and leave a butthurt comment and they go back to their remedial, it's all the Illuminati, it's all the, Zion, kind of people, right? And so, you only get people that are slightly ahead of you. It's hard to understand people that are really far ahead of you, and that's the problem with people connecting with the masters of the heartfulness system. Because the masters of the heartfulness system almost, it really can't care about material life so much. And they're in the central region, which is, millions of years of evolution. And if they talked from that place, if they talked from where they're at spiritually, nobody would get it. Nobody would, even longtime practitioners of the system would really understand what's being offered or what's being said, because they're technically thousands, hundreds of thousands of years in spiritual evolution ahead of them, right? Ahead of everybody else. And so there's there's a couple of interesting stories in the heartfulness system. One in which, Babaji is talking to Charji, who's going to be his disciple. And he said, well, if everyone knew, what we were doing here, what's the eventual goal, there would only be the 3 of us, right? The 3 masters of the system, because it's a hard road for people to take. The other thing is that when Babaji was, made it into the central region and he got a taste of, true reality, he said to Lalaji, is that it? And Lalaji's like, well, if it's so insignificant, this condition, I can withdraw it from you. And he said, no, I'd rather die. And so Master Charji was telling this story, and he said, so the condition of reality is something so insignificant that it doesn't really, it seems like a disappointment or something that's, not worth noting, but it's so sublime that, a person who is, experienced it would rather die than give it up. So that's, the goal of human life. Simple and, pure and, something that isn't like got bells and whistles and maybe even a little disappointing. But once you're there, you never want to leave. There's been like 3 times that I, moved to a higher level of consciousness. I went through some things that, helped elevate me to a whole nother level of spiritual knowledge and, condition. And it was really hard to function, very kind of almost lonely compared to what other people are going through. Like if someone else was going through that and they had, moved to one of these higher, more refined levels of spiritual, experience and condition. And even though I've done that myself at times, I would have problems relating to them when they're in that state, right? And so, eventually I had to come back to where I am now, just normal life. And it sucked. It made me feel bad. And it's like I lost it. I talked about flowers for Algernon. Like I can remember it, but it's like I remember things, but I can't, replicate that condition so I can really understand what it's like. It's just a distant memory of rising up to these higher levels of consciousness. And it comes and it goes, right? But you have to be able to focus on mundane life. But anyways, like getting back to the main point of this thing, is that when you are learning from somebody and you're at a level, like in the so-called truth community, you should aspire to take the best of what the person has to offer. Because, for the teachers themselves, I see this, there's always a disappointment for the masters of the heartfulness system that they have to talk about mundane things that people care about right now and not the true, spiritual gifts that they have to offer. That people don't want any part of, the true essence of what they have to give to people. I mean, it's something that, has been talked about in sort of subtle ways. It's a disappointment that people just want, lower level stuff, right? They want just ego satisfying gossip, whatever, they're concerned about right now in their material lives. Most people, it's COVID and things like it. They just want the red meat, right? They just want the stuff that's appeals to their curiosity as as an ego. They don't want the deeper level stuff. They don't want to commit to going to a higher level. They have all these things to, offer people, the masters of the system. And, they just, people don't want them. People don't want the higher stuff. It's played out over and over again. I see it here in my own life, right? People just want, something to help them get by their existence, something to lighten their mood, something to, inspire them on a lower level. But what really has to be offered here, in terms of, things that I could say that are so much more important than what I present here, like in terms of the topics, who cares about Nancy Pelosi? How many videos do I have to make about just mundane, people who are, we know what Jojo Magoo is. We know what, we should know what Trump is, right? But people just want that level, just want to engage with the show, the illusion, the video game, and don't really want the transformational stuff that could be offered here. It's just the way it is. And for that reason, I'm not that hopeful for humanity. I know that what could happen, but will it, right? Because people don't choose the higher. I've seen it over and over again. People tend to not choose the higher. I mean, even you go back to the Mahabharata, and when Krishna was revealing himself to Arjuna, and Krishna was the embodiment of Vishnu's divine essence, and Arjuna was the embodiment of Vishnu's ego. So they're a part of the same soul. And so Krishna is really revealing himself to himself. His soul is revealing itself to his ego. And his ego's never show me that again. Right? I'll do whatever you want, but just don't show me that again. Because Arjuna refused to fight. And so these are, higher developed souls. I mean, it's a part of us, sometimes your soul can incarnate into two people. And, you'll have some kind of relationship with that other person. And it's, two parts of your spiritual essence representing different types of qualities and things, right? And, it's kind of interesting that can happen. Because your soul is, here and somewhere else. And you could be, your soul could be multiple people. Sort of in that, Smith character in The Matrix. And so, that was the case. And even though this is, a divine being that was in charge of the material universe at that time, a cosmic functionary, he didn't even want to see his own spiritual essence. Think about that. And so, what about just first timers, people, this is their first life. And they just, came up from the animal kingdom. They were a cow or a dog or something, a dolphin or something in their past life. And they just want to indulge in the material world and, limited contact with their soul, just something a little experience here or there. And so most people are like that and are just, a lot of people are just, they don't even want anything to do with God or anything to do with spirituality. Their egos are just run amok and they're just locked into demonic levels of being, and they just want to, be there forever. They just want to stay on this earthly plane of existence and do demonic crap, and they've just completely lost contact with their higher nature. And so for that reason, I mean, there is the opportunity here for people right now and then, in the near future, and it's going to play out one way or another. And I see people have the potential to do it. I see it in myself and I see it with other people. But for the most part, people don't choose it. It's just sad, right? So this might be a lost species, like human beings might just disappear altogether for that reason. The unwillingness to go up to higher levels will be the downfall of humanity. Clinging to and being attached to lower level tendencies and wanting to be addicted over and over again and, in life after life and, living these sort of mundane existences, not being able to reach up to their full potential. And we'll see, it's going to play out. Right now it doesn't look good. I mean, it's there. The opportunities are there. It's just a matter of whether people will take them or not. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.